All right. Hello. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about why there is no silver bullet for knowing the truth. And I feel, again, like this is a really important subject to talk about because we live in a world where a lot of our spirituality, personal growth, self help people out there are telling us that they can help us either get to a place where we fully see the truth, know the truth, have perfect intuition, have perfect awareness, have perfect alignment through their coaching or their tools or their healing or their transmissions or whatever it is that they're offering. Or we have people who claim to have essentially perfect universal knowledge and awareness of how to heal the human body, how to help people with money or relationships or whatever it is. And they claim to have either like intuitive knowledge or some other form of something that they've done that makes them essentially like infallible when it comes to their capacity to know you, their capacity to know what you should be doing, their capacity to understand what you should be doing to heal or to change or to evolve. And either way, we're being handed this fiction, because it is a fiction, that anyone on this planet is ever going to get to a place where we have full awareness and we have complete understanding and we can navigate our lives in a way where we never make a mistake and we never get hurt and we can heal everything and we can transcend everything and we can fix everything, and that is a reality. Now, most of the time, people are not saying directly, I'm going to help you get to a place where you have ultimate awareness. Most of the time, people are not saying, I have perfect awareness, I have perfect intuition, and you can trust me for everything, and I will never make a mistake. Most people aren't like saying with their words that they believe that they can get you to a place where you understand everything, or that they believe that they understand everything. But with their actions and with their sales pitches and with the way that they communicate with people, they are communicating that there is a way that people can be infallible. There is a way that people can have complete awareness and complete understanding and know everything. And either they have it or they can teach you to have it. And therefore, anything that they say that you perceive to be wrong or incorrect or that you would challenge, they're going to challenge you back. Like, they're going to say, you're just not understanding, you're not high enough vibration, you don't get it, there's something wrong with you, that you're not seeing what I'm seeing and knowing what I'm knowing. Or, again, they're saying that literally, I'm teaching you these tools for intuition, I'm teaching you these tools for healing, I'm teaching you these tools for understanding things. And therefore, if anything goes wrong in your life, if you don't have an awareness of something, if you make a mistake, if you see something and it's not the way that it actually is or whatever, you fucked up. You did something wrong. You need more of my course. You need more of my trainings. You need more of my transmissions. You didn't get enlightened properly. You are not enlightened, so on and so forth. So, again, we don't live in a world right now where a lot of people in the healing, personal growth, spirituality worlds are willing to admit that they are not perfect, are willing to admit that they don't have perfect awareness, and are willing to admit that they can't help everybody, that their information isn't for all people, and that there isn't a perfection in what they have to offer. And this, I believe, is happening for a couple of reasons, right? So, number one, which is more important, number one, we all want to believe that perfect transcendence is possible, right? We are all vulnerable to the idea that if I just heal my trauma enough, if I just learn to love myself enough, if I do the right diet, if I find the right meditation, if I do the right spiritual practices, if I pray to the right God, if I find the right guru, whatever it is, live the right lifestyle, that if I make all the right choices, I can get to a place where my life is perfect, or the pain that I'm currently in, and or the pain that I've been in for a long time is resolved, and I'm living in my bliss bubble like all the spiritual people promise you can. And again, that is a completely natural and normal desire, especially when we're in pain. Like, the more life is not already working for you, the more you're in a place where your body is sick, or you don't fit into the normal model of what we're supposed to be doing in terms of work or relationships or whatever it is. The more we're in pain and the more we're struggling and the more we've tried to fix that pain and suffering, the more we've tried the kind of, conventional ways of doing things, and that hasn't worked, and then we're trying more alternative ways, and that's not working, but we're getting all these promises and all these reinforcements that these alternate paths are going to work, and if you just try harder you'll get it, and all this stuff. The more we're going to be vulnerable to the idea that perfection is possible, and that we can do these things, and we can become these things, and we can take these courses, and we can do these trainings, and we can interact with these gurus, and that's going to heal our life, right? Like, the more we are in a position where we're struggling and we don't know how to fix the struggle, the more vulnerable we're going to be to the idea that there is a perfect ultimate solution. And at the same time, we tend to be vulnerable to the ideas that there's like a simple solution, or like a one size fits all, or a catch-all, or a secret, that once you know this one thing, or once you do this one thing, or when you perfect this one area of your life, that it's going to make everything better. Because again, we are human beings who live in a very complex reality, and things are very confusing, and reality is just really, really complex. And so we look for simple solutions, and we're vulnerable to the idea of simple solutions the more pain we're in and the more complex our issue is. Yes? So when we're dealing with something in our life, when we have like a lot of pain, like I said, like we have relationship problems and work problems and health problems, and lots of things are going on, and there are several, like I say, layers and elements to the suffering that we're in, the more vulnerable we're going to be to someone saying, it's okay, I have the perfect answer, I have the thing that's going to take you from 0 to 100, and if you just do this one thing perfectly, right, you do your diet perfectly, it's also going to heal your relationships, and it's going to help you transcend, and it's going to help you do all these things, because when you perfect the body, you perfect everything. Or the idea that if you just do this meditation or this spiritual transcendence work, that when you fix your mind and you get your mind clear and you get your spirit right, that this will fix everything. This will heal everything. You'll then have perfect awareness of what to eat and perfect awareness of how to interact in your relationships, and you'll manifest abundance, and you'll find your tribe and all of these things. And again, we're vulnerable to that, especially when we're in pain, and especially when the pain that we're in doesn't have a simple solution. When we've tried all the things we know to try, and we've done all the things we know to do, and we're in pain and we're struggling and we don't know why, and we can't see why, and we can't figure it out, the more we're going to be vulnerable to this idea that there's a perfect solution and that it looks like this one simple thing. So we all want that. Yes? And I think that, again, being on the internet and being in social media and having access to so many people with so many ideas and all of the information out there, and the fact that we still live in a world where so much can be said without proof, and so much can be presented as being one way when it's really another, that we have to be so aware of our own biases and our own vulnerabilities when we're interacting, especially in the spirituality, self-help, and personal growth world, because this is still an incredibly unregulated industry where anyone can say anything and anyone can make up any story. And so much of the marketing and how we're sold these things is based on emotion, and it's based on anecdote, and it's based on how shiny and pretty we can make ourselves look in our videos and in our content. And like I say, we're vulnerable to believing things without proof, without real proof, without vetting, without really looking into things, because we're emotionally hooked by this idea of a perfect transcendence that's going to take all of our pain away when we've been in pain for a long time, or when we don't know how to solve our pain. So that's the first reason, right? We are all vulnerable to some degree of believing that there's perfect solutions and that there's perfect transcendence and that there's perfect healing. The more pain we're in, and the less what we've tried has worked. Okay? So like I say, people who are generally doing well and who have a lot of privilege in this life, or a lot of just things have gone well for them, or access, whatever, they tend to be less vulnerable to people making claims of perfect healing and perfect transcendence, because they're not in a position where they are in pain enough and are desperate enough to believe what's being said just on the face of it. Okay? Whereas people who are in pain and people who are struggling and people who do have things in their life that are not how they want them to be, they are so much more vulnerable to these predatory ways of selling items and selling courses and selling ourselves as perfect and transcended and will get you to be transcended and all of this stuff, because of course. So it's one of these catch-22 things of like, as consumers and people on the internet and interacting with people who are selling everything that is imaginable as a solution to everything, the more we have pain and the more we are struggling and the more we have fought to try to fix things in our lives and it's not working, the more we need to be like on top of ourselves when we're looking at this stuff, and our capacity, and our tendency to want to believe what we're being told. And the more we're going to have to say, okay, no, I have to come at this with a skeptic's mind. And not in the sense that we're saying I have to come at this with like a, I don't believe it's true until like complete, like I don't believe in anything and I won't believe in anything and I won't try anything until I can know for 100% fact that it's going to work. Because nothing is like that. Everything on this planet that we're going to try to heal ourselves or to grow or to change or whatever, we're going to take a risk on it. There's never going to be a guarantee that anything is going to work. But we need to be, like I say, in a place where we're able to take calculated risks, to take what people are saying with a grain of salt, and to be really aware of where we're being emotionally pulled in to this idea of perfection, or this idea of a perfect parent or an all-knowing guide or an all-knowing something that, like I say, is going to make us feel safe in this world where we don't feel safe. And that, again, right, it's the hardest thing to do when you're already vulnerable and in pain. But the more vulnerable and in pain we have to understand is we're the people that I'm going to heal your life with this one simple solution. I can teach you how to fix everything in your life. I have perfect awareness. I can teach you how to have perfect awareness. The more those people are marketing to us. Like, we need to realize that. We are the target audience of people who are promising transcendence. Because we are the ones who are vulnerable enough, that are in pain enough, that we are likely to believe it, even when there's no proof, and even when it doesn't work. And then we're likely to gaslight ourselves or to believe the gaslighting that we receive when the technique doesn't work, or when the guru is wrong, or when whatever happens, to think it was our fault, to think that we did something wrong, we misperceived, we're not high-spirited enough, we're not evolved enough, it was something we did wrong that made it so that the technique didn't work. Or, like I say, that they were right somehow even when they were wrong, and it was our failing that we didn't get it. So that's number one, is that when we're in pain and when we're struggling and we've done everything we know to do and it's not working, we want an answer. We want a simple answer. We want a clear answer. The more pain we're in, the more simple and straightforward we want the answer to be. And so the more vulnerable we are to these teachings and these people who tell us that perfection is possible with this one simple thing. And the more vulnerable we're going to be to gravitating towards people who are selling us simple one thing solutions, instead of looking for the real answers, which are going to be incomplete, which are going to be imperfect, which are going to be step-by-step progress instead of a thing you're going to do, which is going to be a lot of trial and error, figuring things out, one step forward, two steps back. The more we're going to be, like I say, vulnerable to wasting our time on these simple one-shot solutions that are supposed to be the answer to everything, that could never be the answer to everything, the more we're going to waste our time on that because we're exhausted and we're in pain and we want that to be the reality, and the less then we're going to have awareness, understanding, energy, focus for the actual solutions that are in real reality, that are slow and boring and monotonous and not magical and not shiny, but actually going to be helpful. Okay, so that's the first thing. The more vulnerable we are, the more we have to be aware of our own self and how we're being manipulated emotionally by people who are selling to people like us. Okay? And then the second thing is the second reason that this idea of perfect transcendence and perfect answers and perfect gurus even exists, right? Another reason is because we live in a world now where we have commodified everything. Yes, like literally everything has been made into a capitalistic venture because our current human systems are literally all revolving around money and the market economy. And we are moving further and further and further in a direction where nothing in life has value and nothing in life has meaning inherently on its own. But rather, everything is valued and everything is determined whether it has value or not based on its market value. And right, like we're literally getting to a point where we can't have life experiences or interactions that aren't transactional in some way. We're getting to a point where when we can't see how what we're doing is going to fit into being productive or into helping us become more productive or more valuable in the market economy in some way, we're losing our sense of seeing those things as important. We're getting to a place where, again, healing, spiritual guidance and support, finding what you love in this life, figuring out your identity, figuring out what matters to you, relationships, our health, all of these things are being commodified. All of these things are now part of what value we place on you as a human being in the marketplace. And I really believe that a lot of our spiritual fraudulentness, right? Like even the fact that so many people now are wanting to claim that their life purpose or that the thing that they're here to do or the thing they're passionate about is some form of spirituality. I don't think that that's actually true for a lot of people, but rather I feel like a lot of people are doing it and pursuing it and thinking it looks good because of what the market economy has done to spirituality, right? Like it's being turned into something that I don't think is genuinely valuable for us as human beings. I don't believe that the commoditization of spiritual guidance, or even to a degree like emotional support or being there for others, is good for us. Because on the one hand, I think there are so many situations where we're losing the capacity to just be good friends and good family and good neighbors to one another, where we're getting to a place where we're thinking like everything that I'm going through and everything that I'm experiencing and all of these things need to be witnessed and seen by a spiritual person in order for it to be legitimate. Or we're thinking like, okay, I'm a kind of person who likes to listen to the stories of my friends and I like to hear their problems and I like to give advice and all that stuff, so maybe I should turn that into a career because I enjoy doing it. And in real reality, it's like, no, you should just be a good friend to your friends, right? Like, these are people you actually know. These are people you have an actual rapport with. These are people you know their history. Of course you're good at giving advice to your friends. You should, like, all of us to a degree are going to be great at giving advice to our friends because we know them enough to have like enough information about their situation to give good advice, and we're detached enough from the outcome of what they're choosing to do that we can have a clearer perspective for them. Yeah? And we can do this for our friends and for our family. And it's not a spiritual gift, and it's not something we should be turning into a job. It's something we should just recognize as like, this is part of what being a human is that we are there for each other and we help each other. And I heard one of the people that I listen to on YouTube, her name's Heather the Lawyer, talk about how for a while there she really thought she needed a therapist when it turned out she just needed to talk to her friends. And I feel like we're losing that. Like we're losing just connecting with each other and being good friends to each other and being good neighbors and good family members because we think, is that a career? Is this a purpose? Is this something I should be doing for money? Because again, we live in a world where we're being told that the only things that count as experiences or things that are real are things we've monetized. So you had coffee with your friend, but did it really count if no money was exchanged? Like, we're literally living in that world now. So that's number one. It's like, I don't really think that a lot of people who are in the spirituality and the self-help world really should be there. They've been bamboozled into the fact that they're a good friend to their friends, and that they should turn that into a marketable thing. And I just don't think that for most of us that that's true. Okay? And then the second thing with spiritual guidance, and especially like spiritual gifts and intuition and all of these things, I know that for a lot of us, we don't believe that that stuff exists at all. And for some of us, like myself, even when I try not to believe in it, it's like a part of my life. Like, it's these spiritual experiences and like whatever, meditate, like things that people strive to have as spiritual experiences have been a part of my life for my whole life, to the point that I didn't even know that that's what that it was a spiritual experience. It was just my how I perceived reality. It was just normal for me. And that's not a brag or whatever. It's just to say I come to this field of spirituality and self-help and personal growth with a lot of skepticism and with a lot of just not really believing what people are saying, because I've been in it for so long and I've watched it for so long, and I've had so many experiences of seeing people say one thing on their social media and then I meet them in real life and it's nothing like that. And like I say, just so many people who have presented themselves as something and have been striving to have this spiritual life, or this spiritual, or what they think a spiritual life is, and then versus kind of like my own experience and the people that I know that have just been, I don't know, like born with this tilt towards the spiritual and trippy experiences happening. It's just like, I don't know that anyone would actually choose this, is my biggest thing that I have to say. Like, living a life where your perspective of things is so different from everybody else's perspective, and your experience of things is so different from everybody else's experience, and your, like, my capacity to see and know things about people and all that stuff, like, I didn't ask for any of that. I didn't do anything necessarily to develop it. And like I said, well, I guess that's not true. I did a lot to develop it. My entire life was about God. But again, like, I don't know how you fake that. And I don't know that you'd want to choose that. So that's my first thing. And then the second thing is that, again, when we look at the way spiritual people have been treated in past civilizations, the kind of understanding was that the people that spiritual person, the group that person belonged to, was going to be just sort of taken care of by the group, so that their gifts or whatever it was that they provided for the people, like the spiritual guidance and all that stuff, wasn't attached to their having to earn it for their livelihood. And I feel like in this world, when we're getting to the place where people are having to market their spiritual gifts, and they are having to commoditize and make into a form of income spiritual wisdom and spiritual knowledge, which I still think is like a very deep and a very personal and a very emotional and a very vulnerable thing for both people. We get into dangerous territory where people are forced into situations where they have to sell shit, and they have to sell promises that aren't real, and they have to get to a place where they're not being honest about what they're seeing and about what they're capable of doing and about what they're capable of giving. Because in order to make enough money, they have to either make grandiose promises that they can't live up to, or they have to create elaborate illusions about what they're doing and gaslight people to make it so that people feel like their services are worth it. Because in my experience, real spiritual guidance and real spiritual wisdom and like real healing in a lot of ways, again, is slow, it's boring, it's not magical, it's not I can heal you and like come to my session and then tomorrow you'll have no more, right? We can clear your chakras and we can clear your history and we can read your Akashic records and then your life is completely changed. That's just not reality. That's not how reality works. In my experience, that's not how spirituality works. That's not how life works. But because we live in this world where what's popular and what makes money and what's gonna help people be able to make enough money to make a living, or even more than that is what a lot of people want, is flashy and quick and shiny and comfortable and familiar, and we just want it to be quick and fun and fast. Right? Like we live in a microwave generation. Like it's just, that's what it is. And this just does not fit, in my experience, with real healing and real spirituality and real personal growth, which is slow and uncomfortable. And there are times when there's lots of thing or whatever, like, you know, excitement, and that's great. But that's not the majority of what it is. And a lot of the time, people quit working with their therapist or working with their coach or whatever when things start to get hard and uncomfortable, because we're not expecting that to be what it is, right? We are all being sold this, work with me and I'll change your life, work with me and I'll figure out all your trauma and we'll get through it and all this stuff. And we're making these promises of what people want to hear, right? We want to hear, like what I was talking about with point number 1. We want to hear that it's simple and it's one step, or it's just this step-by-step process and we'll do it one time and then you're going to be healed and transformed. When really, the actual truth is, when we get into what's really bothering us and our traumas from our childhood and all of these things, it's like a slow reveal of things we've been consciously and unconsciously hiding from ourselves because it's so painful and so uncomfortable. And it's a lot of looking at things that we've been intentionally not looking at. And it's and not because we're weak or we don't want to look at it or whatever, but because we've never had the tools to actually look at it. And to be someone who's going to support someone through that, number 1, like it's not actually a very fun job. It's not what Instagram makes it look like. It's really soul-crushing work a lot of the time, to see the pain that people are in and to see what they've been through and to be able to create a space where they are safe enough to process that stuff without being re-traumatized by it, without being forced into seeing something more than they are capable of seeing or feeling something more than they're capable of feeling. When you're there to be an emotional support for someone, to go to these really hard, scary, emotional places and not have to go by themselves, it's not very fun. And to convince someone not to quit when that starts to happen, or to understand that it's not even your job not to convince someone not to quit. It's not your job to convince someone not to quit. That to be a true spiritual guide and a spiritual coach, you have to be ready to say, it's okay that you don't want to keep going. It's okay you don't want to keep coaching with me. It's okay you don't want, like, this was too much, or you got to a place where you need to take a break or whatever. But when your income and your livelihood is dependent upon continuing on with sessions, when that's not what's best for the person, when your income is dependent upon keeping someone happy so that they will keep coaching with you, when you're kind of just taking their money at that point because you're not going any deeper and you're not making them uncomfortable, or you're like, again, right? Like, it's not our job to make people uncomfortable. It's not our job to force people to look at stuff. But like I say, like, it's rare that people are really ready to go to the places that they need to go a lot of the time. It's rare that people are in a position where continuing on after a couple of sessions is worth it for them. It's rare that people are going to be consistent in their ability to come for coaching sessions or healing sessions or whatever, because this work is hard and we need time to integrate and we need time to recalibrate and we need time to run away. And it's just to be a safe place, to truly be a safe place for the people you're working with, means you have to be incredibly flexible with your needs as the practitioner, right? You have to be in a place where what is best for them is what you're going to do, even if that's not financially good for you, even if that means you're not going to make promises you can't keep, even if that means you don't target people who would be incredibly vulnerable to your offer, but that you know that you can't actually hold and support through what they're going through. It means that you don't make promises you can't keep, and therefore you're probably not going to have a big business. And that is hard to do when that's your livelihood, right? So the fact that we've commoditized spirituality means we have so many more people out there who are willing to lie, who are willing to say that they can heal you, that they have perfect awareness, that they know everything, that they can teach you how to know everything, and that they're working with them is the thing that's going to heal your entire life. Because people who are in pain want to hear that, and that's how you're going to make sales. Yes? But that is not actually going to be the thing that heals people. And then with that, with all of that, it is my opinion that the real tools and what really helps people move forward and actual spiritual guidance, which a lot of the time is not, I'm going to teach you how to transcend what you're going through, or I'm going to even help you fix what you're going through. A lot of the time, real spiritual guidance and real spiritual support comes in the form of, I'm going to walk through this with you. I'm going to help give you tools to help you work with what's happening. We're not going to necessarily be able to fix and heal and transcend and perfect everything. A lot of the time, real spirituality comes down to, this is a thing I can't change or fix right now or maybe ever. So what tools do I need to create the best life I can possibly create within this? And that is not an attractive sales pitch, right? To hear, yeah, some people out there who are chronically ill, you're never going to be healed. Some trauma that we have experienced, we're not going to transcend. Sometimes we're in a relationship situation or a money situation where we're kind of at a ceiling. And maybe not forever, but right now, this is what it is. So our spiritual practices aren't focused on changing things, aren't focused on fixing things, aren't focused on how we transcend this, but are focused on how do we support ourselves in this circumstance? How do we manage the emotions? How do we process the cyclical feeling that's going to come with a problem that we can't fix of, right, finding our empowerment, finding how we can support ourselves, getting discouraged, getting hurt, getting lost, being upset, having to go through that emotional process, finding some empowerment, finding some encouragement, coming down again, having a crash. Like, a lot of the time, our spiritual guidance should be that. But that is not marketable, right? I'm going to teach you how to accept the things you cannot change and teach you how to process the negative emotions that are going to come up cyclically. Like, you're not going to do it once or twice and then clear it and then you're good. That these negative emotions are going to continue to come up for the rest of your life. So how do we manage them? It makes it so that those tools don't seem attractive, number one, or seem like they're not real, right? Like, so much of what I have offered in terms of advice and coaching and whatever has been judged as like, well, you're just clearly not transcended. you're clearly not evolved. You clearly don't get it. Because if you're working with, you're never going to get rid of your negative emotions. If you're working with, you're never going to get rid of your limiting beliefs. If you're working with, you're never going to perfectly transcend all of these things. And you're rather saying, okay, like, how do we work with the waves of life? How do we support ourselves when we get upset? How do we make room for the fact that these things are going to continue to happen for the rest of our lives? And how do we deal with them in a real way? Sounds wrong. It sounds like not spirituality. It sounds like boring and like I don't get it. Right? And that's been a lot of what I've seen in the spirituality world, is people constantly saying, no, there's a transcended solution. And it's this simple thing, it's this diet, it's this. And I've watched people come to my work and be like, actually, I'm just going to go keep doing plant medicine. I'm going to keep going to the healer. I'm going to keep whatever. Because what you're offering, this slow learning to accept myself, learning to love myself, learning to be on my own side, all of these things, that sucks. And all of these other people are promising that I can transcend and that I can heal and that there's a fast way and that there's an easy way. And I'd rather believe that. And then they go and they do it and they try it and it doesn't work. They get the high of the whatever, because this is pretty much how all these spiritual promises work. There's the high of I found it, or the nervous system stimulation of the program itself. There's some sort of trauma that happens that we think of as, breath work, or someone calling out all of your shit, or doing some sort of drug or whatever, and we get this manic sense of something is happening and oh my gosh, and we think we've healed and we think we've transcended, and then we go back to our lives and we crash and we think, oh, I must have done something wrong, or it didn't work and I need to keep going and I need to keep going because it really felt like it worked. It really felt like it did something in those moments where I was all high and it was crazy. It felt like it was working and I was being told that that's what healing is. And so therefore there just must be something wrong with me that I couldn't hold it. And like I say, that is obfuscating what real healing and what real spiritual guidance is. Which again, like I said, is often just slow, tedious, monotonous, learning how to deal with the realities of human emotions and the realities of human pain and the realities of human life in a way that is constructive, in a way that is supportive, in a way where we are able to find tools that make our lives livable and make them good enough. And that is actually so much better than continually striving for a perfection that doesn't exist. But the more we strive for that perfection that doesn't exist, the more we stay in pain, the more pain we actually have. Because we're not doing the simple things, the slow things, the over time things that would actually improve our experience little by little by little by little over time. And that's another huge problem. So I have a big problem with people on the internet and in our spirituality, self-help, personal growth worlds who claim that they've transcended all of their issues, who claim that they can teach you to transcend all of your issues, who claim to have perfect awareness or a perfect connection to God or a perfect something. Because I know that perfection doesn't exist. I know it doesn't. And I know that is not harmless. Because again, it's preying on the most vulnerable people. The people who need practical, slow, real things the most are being the most targeted by these promises of perfection through their pain. And then they're being sold stuff that doesn't work. They're being sold things that stimulate them and make them feel like something happened because it was really stressful. And then the come down or the bliss afterwards makes you think, oh, something really happened here. When in reality, nothing happened. You're going to go back to your life, and your life is going to be the same as it's always been, and maybe now even more painful because you're coming down from whatever you just did. And now you're convinced that the reason it didn't heal your life is because you did something wrong, or it wasn't enough, or you're not transcended enough. And so you go and spend more money and more time on these things that don't work. And the fact that it doesn't work is actually what makes it profitable for the person selling it. Like, that's what's so mind-blowing about this stuff. Is like, if you have if you can convince people enough that your product should work, and then it doesn't, that is like the golden ticket for making as much money as possible. Because if you can't convince people it works, obviously they won't buy it. But if you can convince people that it works and it actually works, they only buy from you one time. But if you can convince people that your one-shot perfect thing is going to work because you play directly into people's emotions, you play directly into their vulnerabilities and their desire to believe that there's a perfected something, and you convince them deeply enough that this thing should work, and you convince them that what's happening to them during the process is it working. Because that's another thing. A lot of people have never experienced real healing, and they've never experienced real transformation, so they don't know what it's supposed to look and feel like. So then when you're told it's supposed to feel like this big, dramatic, my life flashes before my eyes, or all my energy chakras are open and I have this transcended experience and it's supposed to feel like this, and you're told that that's what healing is supposed to feel like, and then it doesn't work, you're convinced that you found the person who has the answer. You're convinced that what happened to you was healing because you've been told that that's what healing is. And then it didn't work, and you're convinced it was because of you. You're convinced you did something wrong. So now what are you going to do? You're a repeat customer forever. You're going to die on the hill that this person has it all figured out. They know what they're doing because you felt better for 5 minutes, or you got results for 2 minutes. Because that's another thing. A lot of the time we can get results for a short period of time, and then the results fall off, or we can't continue with the program or whatever, and then we think, nope, see, the thing was right. It was me that broke, me that fell off, whatever. So now you're a dedicated fan forever. And you're going to then have cognitive bias where you see change where it didn't actually happen, where you see results where they weren't actually there, because you invested time and you invested money, and you want to believe that what you just invested your time and money in was real. So you're going to now be one of these people who got sucked into something, and then you're going to be like an evangelist for it, even though it's not even working for you, because you've been convinced that this is what healing is and that this is working, and you just have to do it more, and you have to do it more, and you have to do it more. So that's why most of our spiritual help, self-help, personal growth people stand on stage and give you their whole transformation story. They tell you, I was where you were, and now I'm nowhere where you were. And if you just do what I did and do what I say, you will get to where I am right now. And number one, that's almost never true, because we're all so different. And then number two, like I said, a lot of time people are just lying. They're just not telling the truth. But it's the perfect thing to make a shit ton of money. Because like I said, now you're convinced that it's real. Now you're convinced that it's you. And you're a repeat customer for the rest of your life. That sucks, but it's true. And then, like I say, all of that obfuscates what is actually helpful most of the time. All of that obfuscates what is actually helpful, which is slow, incremental progress towards healing that's uncomfortable. It's not shiny, it's not flashy, and it's going to be inconsistent. You're going to be inconsistent in your capacity to do your practices. You're going to be inconsistent in your capacity to do your coaching sessions, to follow the program, to be like doing like something like the mystery school. I don't expect that people are able to do a lesson every week. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to think. People are going to come at this. They're going to do it really hard for a little while, and then they're going to pull back, and then they're going to... And again, there has to be room for that. In real spirituality, we're not consistent. In real growth, it's not consistent. In real transformation, it's not this big, stressful thing. It's slow progress over time. And like I say, because spirituality has been commodified, this has all been obfuscated. And then we believe that there is a way to have perfect truth and to have perfect awareness, and that if we're still experiencing pain or struggle or sickness or whatever in our lives, it means we're doing something wrong. It means the technique didn't work. It means we have to go do some other more intense, extreme thing. When in real reality, it's just like, no, we just need tools for, like I say, real reality, which is we do the best we can with what we have. We are going to continue to learn and grow and understand things about ourselves and things about the world that will make life easier and better. That is true. And we want that to be happening. We are slowly going to be learning to process our emotions, to process our trauma, to do what our bodies need us to do, to build lives around who and what we actually are as we discover that slowly over time. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to not see reality for how it is. We are going to make assumptions that are wrong. And real spirituality helps us deal with that. Real spirituality says, okay, you the human being who's awesome in some ways and totally flawed in others, how do we support you? How do we support you in processing? How do we stand for you? How do we create a life where we can do the best we can with what we have? That is real spirituality. There is no perfected transcendence. There is no guru out there who knows everything that you can perfectly trust. There is no such thing as perfect intuition or perfect understanding or perfect transcendence to the point where you never have pain again. Some shit can't be healed. And that's reality. So real spirituality and real personal growth is about meeting us where we actually are, in our emotions, in our awareness, in our capacity to process what we have to process, in our ability to support ourselves, and just doing what we actually can right here, right now, which is always less than we want it to be. It's always less exciting, it's always less transformative, but that is how we make progress. One little step at a time. So, there is no ultimate thing. There is no ultimate transcendence. There is better. And there is getting to a place where we genuinely don't struggle with the things we used to struggle with before. That's totally possible. Healing is possible. But again, it's going to come because of slow, incremental things we do over time. It's going to come from progress until one day we look back and think, whoa, like I don't even deal with that anymore. It's going to come from slowly showing up for ourselves one step at a time and learning how to be okay with failure and getting it wrong and not seeing reality and understanding that we're going to go to therapists and we're going to go to healers and they're going to have limited capacity. They're going to see some things and they're going to miss other things. They're going to know some things and then they're not going to know other things. And there just isn't a perfect. And we have to be okay with that. And that is hard when we're vulnerable. And that's hard when we're in pain. But that's how we protect ourselves from this cycle of spending money and time on perfect promises that can never be a perfect promise, that make us feel like we are failing when it's not perfect. And then we're wasting our time on that instead of doing the things that are actually going to be improving our lives over time. Okay? There's no silver bullet. We learn and we grow, we get better at intuition, we get more aware, that all happens. We heal to the degrees that we can, that is real. And we expect that life is going to continue to be life. That things are going to continue to be hard sometimes. That emotions are going to happen. And we look for tools for how to navigate that instead of looking to constantly transcend and escape it. Because when we learn how to navigate it, we actually give ourselves a chance at feeling better. We aren't going to escape the human condition. We're going to get better at being human and at supporting ourselves in our emotions and all that stuff so they're not as painful. We fix the things we can fix slowly over time by getting on our own side and believing we are good and doing what we can for ourselves. And then accepting what we can't and processing that. And sometimes, again, it's not about getting a therapist or a spiritual. We just need friends. We just need people to talk to. We need to stop commodifying all of our experiences. We need to stop Instagramming everything. Just go and be outside and talk to your friends and don't figure out how to monetize it. Because that's another big thing. We got to start valuing life for life, not what it is in the market economy. Okay, so that's my TED Talk today. Thank you for coming. I think you're great. You're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. There is no perfect. There is progress. Slow, steady, over time is always going to win the race. Take what works from what people say, leave what doesn't. If it's a big nervous system stimulation thing, it's probably not it. Slow and steady over time. And just be on your own side. You are here to figure out a life that works for you instead of trying to figure out how to fit yourself into what other people are doing. When you live from that place, I'm going to have compassion and curiosity for myself. Now, how do I make it work for myself versus trying to fit myself into something else? That is where the magic is. Okay? Okay. Until I see you again,